the US dollar is up 17% against all cryptocurrencies in the world. In second place is the Thai Baht. Between the 1997 Asian financial crisis and Kwasi Kwarteng's tax cuts, global economies have wavered in the face of the US dollar, giving consumers an upper hand on the foreign market. For today's video, our target is to find which currency will dominate the world after this current recession. Let us get started. The US dollar index, an indicator that measures the currency against other currencies, says the greenback is up more than 17% so far this year. Matt Forrester, a chief investment officer of Lockwood Advisors, said, "We have seen a tremendous rise in the dollar. It's a juggernaut in the middle of every securities transaction and payments around the globe." In comparison, real estate, bonds, stocks, and cryptocurrencies have all fallen at the mercy of inflation. The dollar is the only asset that is still standing strong. The US dollar hit a milestone when the Great British Pound fell below it. It started with Kwasi Kwarteng, the immediate past British finance minister, announcing the largest tax cuts in the last 50 years. The investors became worried because if the people were not funding the government's sizable fiscal spending, who would pay for it? So many people got their monies from the Bank of England and into US dollar reserves. Since European distress means bringing money into the US reserve, when does the US suffer a macroeconomic factor that takes money elsewhere? We have the answer on the brink of another war coming shortly. The pound's decline, and with it, the euro, is indicative of Europe's fears of an energy crisis and Eurozone recession from the war in Ukraine. The Japanese yen has hit a 20% decline next to the dollar, and so has the Indian rupee, showing 80 rupees per dollar. In a note to its client, as cited by DW, Deutsche Bank shared insight that this historic feat is a replay of the 80s. George Saravalos, head of foreign exchange research, wrote, "The dollar is experiencing its largest valuation overshoot since the 1980s. Amidst extreme volatility, a global chorus of discomfort is slowly building." Typically, the US dollar acts as the token currency for international trade. As it has racked up a reputation as the safest bet in economic distress, investors are compelled to save their money in the US dollar, as it does not pose the same high risks that Europe is facing now. Those who need higher returns know that Europe and Asia are no good now and have turned to the greenback. The recession is a significant talking point in Europe, driving inflation and higher energy and food prices. The central banks are hiking rates and elevating consumer discomfort. Although America has a similar problem, it might face these specific challenges when China and Taiwan go to war. In spite of sanctions against China, America and the Chinese still do business in many countries. On the one hand, the current situation will make imports to America cost less. This is because the currency dominates almost every other country, including the Great British Pound. And imports to other countries are more expensive, as most countries import with the US dollar. Those raw and unfinished products will now cost more when the producers make them into finished goods. Further, tourists to the US will need more money, as their pounds and euros will be worth much less. Countries like Ghana and Sri Lanka will have their reserves eroded, and they could possibly not pay their debts or import healthcare supplies. William Jackson, the chief emerging market economist at Capital Economics, wrote, "The risks are concentrated in frontier markets such as Sri Lanka, where these risks have already crystallized, and Ghana, as well as usual suspects like Argentina and Turkey. There must be at least one currency that does not go down with the rest. Nomad Capitalist has the answer, and we will share it with you in a little while." On the other hand, US companies doing business abroad will see less profit value once it is transferred into the dollar. For instance, when Tesla sells cars in China at the same price as it does, it will show lower returns in its quarterly reports despite having the same deliveries and orders. In contrast, US tourists will have a swell time in other countries. Subscribe to this channel for more finance stories, opinions, global updates, and investment insights. Besides the US dollar, one might take a quick hike around the Thai Baht. If you're looking for a currency to hedge against inflation, Thailand is one of the best after the US dollar. Despite the country having the least performing currency in the 1997 Asian financial crisis, Thailand has risen to perform better than the entire continent. If you need further proof, think of the number of times you have been to or wish to visit the country, or its island, Bali. As tourism builds up for Thailand, its currency is skyrocketing as visitors bring their pounds, euros, and dollars in demand for the Thai Baht. In an article, nomadcapitalist.com refers to the baht performance as better than the Singaporean dollar. This feat could be undeniable because Singapore has the world's most stable currency. On that note, we are telling you that the Singapore dollar is the third most dominant currency in case you have to hedge against inflation in multiple currencies. The currency has appreciated 30% against the US dollar in the last decade. In conclusion, the US dollar will dominate the world after the recession unless it is zero COVID in China and the war in Ukraine ends, bringing finality to the energy crisis of Europe. Until then, up the dollar bills. Since you now know that our woes are a joke compared to our friends from across the pond, we need to talk about the current state of our investment. What is your go-to, index funds or ETFs? We have a video highlighting the differences and admitting one being better in various categories. Check it out now.